The champagne glass shattered against the wall 2 inches from Maya Warren's head, and she knew with bone-deep certainty that if she did not leave tonight, she might not get another chance. "You're nothing without me." Derek's voice cracked with rage, his face contorted into something she barely recognized anymore. "Nothing, I made you who you are." Maya pressed herself against the kitchen counter, her hands trembling as glass shards glittered across the tile floor. This was not the first time. It would not be the last unless she found the courage buried somewhere deep inside her exhausted heart. 3 years of this. 3 years of walking on eggshells, of apologizing for things she had not done, of watching the man she thought she loved transform into someone who fed on her fear. "I'm leaving," she whispered, the words barely audible. "What did you say?" Derek stepped closer, and Maya could smell the whiskey on his breath. He had been drinking since noon, angry about something his boss said, angry about the traffic, angry about the weather. Always angry. "I said I'm leaving." Her voice was stronger now, even as her legs felt like they might give out. "I can't do this anymore." His laugh was cruel, cutting. "And go where? Back to that pathetic apartment, to your dead-end job at the gallery. You think anyone else would want you?" Maya had heard these words so many times they had burrowed into her soul like parasites. She was 26 years old and felt ancient, hollowed out. But somewhere beneath the fear and self-doubt, a tiny flame of defiance flickered. She had been someone before Derek. She could be someone again. "I don't care," she said, moving toward the bedroom. "I'm done." What happened next came too fast. Derek grabbed her arm, his fingers digging into her skin hard enough to bruise. Maya cried out, trying to pull away, and then they were struggling. She heard her own voice begging him to let go, heard his threats, felt the panic rising in her throat like bile. The front door burst open. Maya did not remember calling anyone. She did not know who would even come. But suddenly there were hands pulling Derek away from her, a strong arm guiding her backward, and a man's voice, calm but absolutely unyielding. "That's enough." Through her tears, Maya saw him. Tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair and eyes that assessed the situation with razor-sharp intelligence. He wore an expensive suit, slightly rumpled now from the confrontation, and he held Derek at arm's length with seemingly effortless strength. "Who the hell are you?" Derek sputtered, trying and failing to break free. "Your neighbor." The man's tone was ice. "And someone who's had enough of hearing you terrorize this woman. The police are on their way." Maya's legs finally gave out and she sank to the floor, her whole body shaking. She had seen this man before, passing him in the hallway of their upscale apartment building, but they had never spoken. She had thought he was just another wealthy resident in a building she could barely afford thanks to Derek's insistence they live beyond their means. Derek was still shouting, threatening lawsuits and violence in equal measure, but the stranger did not flinch. He kept himself positioned between Derek and Maya, a human shield who radiated absolute confidence. When the police arrived 7 minutes later, Derek was still ranting. Maya watched in a daze as they took statements, as Derek tried to charm them with his practiced smile, as the stranger quietly and methodically presented a recording from his phone. "I started recording when I heard her screaming," he explained to the officers. "This has been going on for months." Tonight was the worst. Maya learned his name was Preston Vaughn. She learned he lived 3 doors down. She learned that while Derek was taken away in handcuffs for assault, Preston had been documenting the abuse through their shared walls, waiting for the right moment to intervene. "Why didn't you call before?" she asked him later after the police had left, after the apartment fell into terrible silence. Her voice sounded hollow to her own ears. Preston sat across from her in the living room, his jacket off now, his tie loosened. He looked tired but alert, and when he met her eyes, she saw something there that made her chest ache. Compassion without pity, concern without judgment. "I wanted to," he admitted, "but I also know how these situations work. If I had called without evidence, without you being ready, it might have made things worse for you. I'm sorry if that was the wrong choice." Maya wrapped her arms around herself. She was still shaking, adrenaline slowly draining from her system. I don't know if there was a right choice. I should have left so long ago. You're leaving now, Preston said gently. That's what matters. But leaving was easier said than done. Maya had no family in the city, no close friends anymore after Derek had systematically isolated her from everyone she cared about. Her salary as an assistant curator at a small art gallery barely covered groceries, let alone first and last month's rent somewhere safe. The apartment was in Derek's name. Everything was in Derek's name. Preston seemed to read her thoughts. Do you have somewhere to go tonight? Maya shook her head, shame burning through her. She was 26 and homeless and bruised and broken. I'll figure something out. A hotel maybe. I have a guest room, Preston offered. Before you say no, just consider it practically. It's 3 doors down. It's safe. You won't be alone in a hotel room tonight processing everything that just happened. Every instinct Maya had spent 3 years developing screamed at her not to trust this. Not to trust him. Men who seemed kind always had ulterior motives. Derek had taught her that. Except Derek had never actually been kind, had he? Even in the beginning, there had been signs she had chosen to ignore. I don't even know you, she whispered. I know, and I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm asking you to let me help you get through tonight. Preston stood, giving her space. The door has a lock. I'll give you the Wi-Fi password and order whatever food you want. Tomorrow you can figure out next steps, but tonight just be safe. Maya looked around the apartment she had lived in for 2 years and hated for at least half that time. Looked at the broken glass still scattered across the kitchen floor, the hole Derek had punched in the bedroom wall last month, the carefully neutral photographs on the walls that revealed nothing of who actually lived here. Okay, she said. Thank you. Preston's guest room was 3 times the size of her and Derek's bedroom. Maya stood in the doorway, overwhelmed by soft gray walls, a bed that looked impossibly comfortable, and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city lights. His entire apartment spoke of wealth handled with understated elegance, the kind of money that did not need to announce itself. "Who are you?" she asked, then immediately felt stupid. "Sorry, I just realized I don't know anything about you except your name and that you apparently record domestic disputes through walls." A smile flickered across Preston's face, the first she had seen from him. It transformed his features from handsome to devastating. "I'm the CEO of Vaughn Industries. We manufacture sustainable building materials. Not the most exciting dinner conversation, but it pays the bills." Maya blinked. Vaughn Industries was massive. She had seen their name on construction sites throughout the city, had read articles about their innovations in green architecture. And their CEO had been listening to her fall apart through their shared wall for months. "I'm sorry you had to hear all that," she said, mortification washing over her. "Don't," Preston's voice was firm. "Don't apologize for what he did to you. Not to me, not to anyone." He ordered Thai food and they ate mostly in silence, Maya too exhausted for conversation and Preston seeming to understand that. When she finally retreated to the guest room, she locked the door out of habit, then immediately felt guilty. Preston had done nothing but help her. But 3 years with Derek had rewired her instincts, and she was too tired to fight them. She did not sleep. Every sound made her jump, convinced Derek had somehow made bail and come to find her. Her phone buzzed constantly with messages that started apologetic and quickly turned vicious. She blocked his number at 2 in the morning and cried into the expensive pillows, mourning not the man he was, but the person she used to be before him. Morning came gray and cold. Meyer emerged from the guest room to find Preston already awake, dressed in dark slacks and a crisp white shirt, standing at the kitchen counter with coffee and the newspaper. He looked up when she entered, and his eyes tracked to the bruises now fully visible on her arm in the daylight. "Coffee." He offered, his voice carefully neutral. Maya nodded, accepting the mug he poured. It was perfect without her having to ask, just a splash of cream. She must have mentioned it last night, though she could not remember. I called my lawyer this morning, Preston said, sitting across from her at the breakfast bar. She specializes in domestic violence cases. She's willing to meet with you today if you want, pro bono, restraining order protection, whatever you need. I can't afford a lawyer, Maya started, but Preston shook his head. I'm taking care of it. And before you argue, consider it a neighbor helping a neighbor, or a human helping another human, however you need to frame it to accept. Maya stared at him, this stranger who was upending her life in the best possible way. Why are you doing this? Preston was quiet for a moment, his fingers wrapped around his coffee mug. When he spoke, his voice was low. My sister was in a relationship like yours. I was 18, away at college, and I didn't see the signs until it was almost too late. By the time I came home for Christmas break, she was a shadow of herself. It took years for her to recover, and she still has scars, physical and otherwise. So when I heard what was happening to you, I wasn't going to make the same mistake twice. The honesty in his words hit Maya square in the chest. She saw pain there, old and weathered but still present. Is your sister okay now? She's thriving. Married to a good man, 2 kids, runs her own business, but she had to fight like hell to get there. Preston met Maya's eyes. You're fighting too. Let me help you fight. The lawyer's name was Sandra Chen, and she was a force of nature packed into a 5'2" frame. By noon, Maya had a temporary restraining order filed. By evening, Sandra had arranged for a police escort to retrieve Maya's belongings from the apartment. Preston went with her silent moral support as Maya gathered 3 years of her life into suitcases and boxes. Derek was not there, still being held on assault charges, but his presence lingered in every corner. Maya moved quickly, taking only what was truly hers, leaving behind the expensive clothes he had bought her, the jewelry he had used as apologies after his worst episodes. She wanted nothing that tied her to him. What about this? Preston stood in front of a small painting propped against the bedroom wall, clearly done by an amateur but filled with joy and color. Maya felt tears prick her eyes. I painted that before, when I still did that kind of thing. It's beautiful, Preston said simply. It deserves to come with you. They packed it carefully, and Maya realized it was the only piece of herself she was taking from this place. Everything else was just things. The woman who had painted that landscape, who had laughed freely and dreamed big dreams, had been lost somewhere in these rooms. Maya wanted desperately to find her again. Preston insisted Maya stay in his guest room while she figured out her next steps. Days turned into a week, and Maya found herself settling into an unexpected rhythm. Preston left early for work, but always made sure there was fresh coffee. He came home with takeout and gentle conversation. He asked about her day at the gallery, about the artists she worked with, about her own abandoned paintings. He never pushed, never made her feel like a burden, never once suggested she owed him anything. It was disorienting, this kindness without strings attached. I need to find my own place, Maya said one evening over Chinese food. They had fallen into the habit of eating together, and she looked forward to it more than she wanted to admit. I can't keep imposing on you. Preston looked up from his Kung Pao chicken, something unreadable crossing his face. You're not imposing, but if you're ready to take that step, I support it. Have you been looking? Maya had been. Everything she could afford was either too far from work or in neighborhoods that made her nervous or required deposits she could not manage. Her savings had been drained over the years, spent on things Derek wanted, on keeping him happy, on surviving. Starting over was more expensive than she had imagined. It's harder than I thought, she admitted, but I'll figure it out. Preston set down his fork, studying her with those intelligent eyes that seemed to see too much. I have a proposition, and I want you to really hear me out before you say no. Maya's stomach tightened. Here it was, the catch, the moment when kindness revealed its price. I own several properties in the city, Preston continued. Investment properties mostly. There's a 1-bedroom in a good neighborhood near your gallery. The current tenant just moved out. It's yours if you want it, month-to-month lease. Pay what you can afford right now and we will adjust as you get back on your feet. Preston, I can't. Yes, you can. Maya, listen to me. He leaned forward, his expression earnest. I don't need the money. What I need is to know that you're safe and stable and able to rebuild your life. Let me do this, not as charity but as an investment in someone I believe in. Maya felt tears slip down her cheeks before she could stop them. You don't even know me. Why do you believe in me? I know you survived 3 years of hell and came out the other side. I know you're still going to work every day, still fighting to reclaim who you are. I know you're stronger than you think. Preston reached across the table, stopping just short of touching her hand, giving her the choice. I know you're worth investing in. Maya closed the distance, letting her fingers brush his. The contact sent warmth through her entire body, and she saw something flare in Preston's eyes before he carefully banked it. In that moment, she understood with startling clarity that this was not just kindness. That Preston felt something more, something he was deliberately keeping in check because she was vulnerable and healing, and he would never take advantage of that. The realization should have scared her. Instead, it made her feel seen in a way she had not experienced in years. She moved into the apartment 2 weeks later. It was beautiful, far nicer than anything she could have afforded on her own, with hardwood floors and updated appliances and windows that filled the space with light. Preston helped her move in the few belongings she had, along with new furniture he insisted she needed. When she protested, he simply said he had more money than he knew what to do with, and she should let him spend it on something that mattered. I don't want to be another one of your projects, Maya said as they assembled her new bed frame, the words coming out sharper than she intended. Preston stopped, looking at her across the pile of hardware and instructions. Is that what you think you are? I don't know what I am to you. Maya sat back on her heels, frustrated. A good deed, your sister by proxy, I just need to understand what this is. You're someone I care about, Preston said quietly. Someone I want to see happy. Can that be enough for now? It had to be. Maya was not ready for more, no matter what her heart whispered when Preston was near. She was barely 2 months out of a relationship that had nearly destroyed her. She needed time to remember who Maya Warren was before she could even think about being half of something else. But Preston made it so easy to forget that intention. He invited her to dinner, just as friends, and they talked for hours about everything and nothing. He came to the gallery to see the new exhibition she had curated, and his genuine appreciation for the art made her glow with pride. He encouraged her to paint again, and when she finally pulled out her old supplies, hands shaking with fear and anticipation, he was the first person she showed the tentative watercolor results. This is incredible, Preston said, studying the abstract piece that somehow captured everything Maya had been feeling lately, all turbulence and hope tangled together. You have real talent. It's just a hobby, Maya deflected, uncomfortable with the praise. It's more than that. You light up when you talk about art, about color theory and composition. I see it at the gallery too. You love this. Preston set the painting down carefully. When's the last time you let yourself love something without apologizing for it? The question hit her hard. Derek had mocked her painting, called it a waste of time, said she was playing at being creative while contributing nothing real to the world. She had put her brushes away to keep the peace, and part of her had withered in the process. I'm going to start painting again, she said, the words a vow. Really painting, not just dabbling. Preston's smile was proud and warm and made her heart do complicated things in her chest. Good. The world needs your art in it. 4 months after that terrible night when everything changed, Maya's boss offered her a promotion. Associate curator with a significant salary increase and her own projects to manage. She said yes immediately, then called Preston before anyone else. I'm so proud of you, he said, and she could hear the genuine joy in his voice. We're celebrating. Dinner tonight anywhere you want. Maya chose a small Italian restaurant she had always loved, and they sat in a corner booth drinking wine and sharing pasta while she talked about her plans for upcoming exhibitions. Preston listened with complete focus, asking questions that showed he actually cared about her answers. At some point, Maya realized she had not thought about Derek in weeks. The restraining order was in place, the legal proceedings were moving forward, and she was building a life that belonged entirely to her. "What are you thinking?" Preston asked, and Maya realized she had gone quiet. "I'm happy," she said, surprised by the truth of it. "I didn't think I would be, not for a long time, but I am." "You deserve to be happy," Preston said softly. His hand rested on the table between them, and Maya looked at it, at the strong fingers and the watch that probably cost more than her car, and she wanted to reach out and close the distance. Wanted it so badly she could barely breathe, but wanting scared her. Trusting scared her. What if she was just transferring dependence from one man to another? What if she could not tell the difference between gratitude and something real? Preston seemed to sense her thoughts. "Maya, I need to tell you something, and I need you to know there's no pressure attached to it. None whatsoever." Her heart hammered against her ribs. "Okay, I have feelings for you, real feelings that go way beyond friendship or wanting to help." He kept his voice steady, his eyes locked on hers. "But I also know you need time and space to figure out who you are outside of what Derek did to you. So I'm telling you this not because I expect anything, but because I don't want to be dishonest. You matter to me. More than I probably should have let happen, but here we are." Maya felt tears building again, but they were different this time. Not born from pain, but from something almost like relief. "I feel it too," she whispered, "but I'm scared. I'm so scared of getting it wrong again." "Then we take it slow," Preston said. "As slow as you need. I'm not going anywhere." Slow looked like holding hands on walks through the city. Slow looked like Preston teaching Maya to cook, the two of them laughing in her small kitchen when they inevitably ordered pizza instead. Slow looked like falling asleep on his couch during movie nights and waking up to find he had covered her with a blanket and left a glass of water on the coffee table. Slow looked like Maya painting a portrait from memory and realizing halfway through that the dark eyes and strong jaw belonged to Preston. Slow looked like her heart finally understanding it was safe to open again. 6 months after that first terrible and wonderful night, Maya had her first solo exhibition. Not at the gallery where she worked, but at a smaller cooperative space that featured emerging artists. Preston had encouraged her to submit her work, had believed in her talent even when she doubted it herself. When she got the acceptance letter, she cried and called him, and he showed up at her apartment with champagne and that devastating smile. The opening was everything Maya had dreamed and more. People actually came, actually looked at her paintings with interest and appreciation. Her boss from the gallery was there, proud and supportive. Sandra Chen came too, celebrating not just the art but how far Maya had come. And Preston was there in a dark suit that made him look unfairly handsome, standing back and letting her have this moment while his eyes tracked her every movement with unmistakable pride and something deeper. Near the end of the night, when most of the crowd had filtered out and Maya was floating on exhaustion and joy, Preston approached the painting she had done of him. She had titled it simply Safety, and it showed him in profile, his expression contemplative, light and shadow playing across his features in a way that she hoped captured everything he had come to mean to her. "You made me look heroic," Preston said softly. Maya came to stand beside him. "I painted what I see." He turned to her then, and the expression on his face made her breath catch. Maya. Just her name, but loaded with everything they had been dancing around for months. Maya made a choice, the first one in a long time that felt purely hers, untainted by fear or obligation. She reached up and kissed him. Preston went still for a heartbeat, then his arms came around her and he was kissing her back with a tenderness that made her want to cry. It was nothing like kissing Derek, nothing like any kiss she had ever experienced. This was heat and safety tangled together, passion tempered with patience, and when they finally broke apart, Maya was shaking but not from fear. "I love you," she said, the words spilling out before she could second-guess them. I think I have for a while now. I was just too afraid to admit it. Preston's smile was brilliant, transforming his usually serious face into something that made her fall even harder. I love you too. God, Maya, I've been in love with you for months. They left the gallery together, hand in hand, and Maya felt like she was floating. Everything was different now, the city lights brighter, the autumn air crisper, her future full of possibilities instead of dread. That night, Preston took her back to his apartment, and they talked until dawn about everything. About his sister who Maya desperately wanted to meet. About Maya's estranged parents, and whether she was ready to reach out to them. About dreams and fears and what they wanted their lives to look like. About how Preston had known from the beginning that Maya was special, that she was worth fighting for, that loving her was the easiest thing he had ever done. I was terrified you would think I was taking advantage, Preston admitted as they watched the sunrise from his living room. Maya was curled against his side, feeling safe in a way she had never experienced. That you would see my help as manipulation. It was the opposite of manipulation, Maya said. You gave me choices. You never made me feel like I owed you anything. You saw me as a person worth investing in when I could not see that myself. Preston pressed a kiss to her hair. You're the best investment I ever made. The legal proceedings against Derek concluded 8 months after that night. He pleaded guilty to assault and was sentenced to supervised probation and mandatory therapy. Maya had to see him one last time in the courtroom, and Preston sat beside her, solid and unwavering. When Derek tried to approach her afterward, his apologies ringing hollow, Preston simply stood and placed himself between them until Derek backed away. It's over, Maya said as they left the courthouse. Really over. How do you feel? Preston asked, always checking in, always making sure she was okay. Maya considered the question honestly. Free. Sad for who I was with him, but grateful for who I'm becoming, and so incredibly in love with you that it sometimes scares me how much. Preston stopped walking, pulling her around to face him right there on the courthouse steps. Don't be scared. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to love you today and tomorrow and every day after that for as long as you'll let me. That might be a really long time, Maya warned, but she was smiling. Good, Preston said, and kissed her in the middle of the afternoon with people walking past and honking horns and the whole messy chaos of the city around them. I'm counting on forever. They moved in together a year after that first night, choosing a new place that belonged to both of them rather than trying to blend their separate spaces. It was a loft in a converted warehouse, full of light for Maya's paintings and space for Preston's home office. They adopted a rescue dog, a mixed breed named Charlie who was as broken and hopeful as Maya had once been, and slowly they built a life that felt authentic and beautiful and theirs. Maya continued to paint, growing in confidence and skill. Her work started selling, not just at cooperative galleries but at real shows with actual collectors. Preston never took credit for her success, but his belief in her had been the foundation she needed to believe in herself. He commissioned her to create a large-scale piece for the Vaughn Industries headquarters, and seeing her art displayed in that space felt like validation of how far she had come. Preston proposed on the 2-year anniversary of the night they met. Not the night they started dating, but the night he had burst through a door and changed everything. He took her back to his apartment, which he still owned even though they did not live there anymore, and got down on one knee in the living room where she had stayed that first terrible and wonderful night. You were so brave, he said, holding a ring that was simple and elegant and perfect. Standing in that kitchen and saying you were leaving even though you were terrified. And every day since then, you've been brave in 1,000 small ways. Building yourself back up, learning to trust, letting yourself love again. Maya Warren, you are the strongest person I know and the love of my life. Will you marry me? Maya said yes through happy tears, and when Preston slid the ring onto her finger, it felt like the final piece of her new life clicking into place. She was not the same woman who had cowered from thrown champagne glasses. She was someone who had learned she deserved safety and respect and a love that built her up instead of tearing her down. She was an artist, a curator, a survivor who had become a thriver. And she was going to marry a man who had seen her at her lowest and loved her anyway, who had given without expecting anything in return, who had taught her that real love was patient and kind and nothing like what she had known before. They married 6 months later in a small ceremony with close friends and family. Preston's sister Sarah was there with her husband and kids, and she hugged Maya tight and whispered, "Thank you for loving my brother. He deserves someone as wonderful as you." Maya's parents came too, their relationship still healing but getting stronger, proud of the daughter who had found her way back to herself. Sandra Chen officiated because of course she did, fierce and loving as she pronounced them husband and wife. When Preston kissed Maya, she tasted salt from both their tears and knew this was just the beginning of their story, not the end. 3 years after Preston saved her from Derek, and from her own fear, Maya opened her own gallery. A small space dedicated to emerging artists, particularly women rebuilding their lives after trauma. Preston helped fund it, but Maya ran it herself, pouring all her passion and experience into creating a safe place for others to find their voices again. On opening night, Preston found her standing in the center of the gallery surrounded by art and hope and possibility. "Proud of you," he said, sliding an arm around her waist. Maya leaned into him, this man who had become her home. "Couldn't have done it without you." "Yes, you could have," Preston corrected gently, "but I'm grateful I got to be part of the journey." Maya turned to kiss him, thinking about that terrified woman who had whispered she was leaving and meant it, thinking about the stranger who had burst through a door and refused to let her fall. Thinking about how sometimes rescue comes from unexpected places, and how the strongest love is the one that gives you space to save yourself while standing beside you the entire time. "I love you," she told Preston, the words as easy as breathing now. "I love you too," he replied, "always." And Maya believed him, because she had learned what real love looked like. It looked like patience and respect and partnership. It looked like someone who saw your worth even when you could not see it yourself. It looked like Preston Vaughn, who had stepped in to save her and never let go, not because she needed saving but because he knew she was worth fighting for. 5 years later, Maya stood in their loft watching Preston teaching their daughter Emma to paint. Their 3-year-old daughter had more enthusiasm than skill, getting more paint on herself than the canvas. But Preston was patient and encouraging and so full of love it made Maya's heart ache in the best way. Their son James, just 6 months old, slept peacefully in his crib nearby, blissfully unaware of the chaos. Charlie, now old and gray, dozed at Maya's feet. This was the life she had built from the ashes of who she used to be. This was the family she had created with a man who had shown her that love did not have to hurt. That strength came in many forms, and that sometimes being rescued was just the first step toward rescuing yourself. Preston looked up and caught her watching, his smile intimate and knowing. Across the years and the struggles and the joy, that smile still made her fall in love with him all over again. "What are you thinking?" he asked, the same question he had asked her 100 times before. Maya smiled back, watching her daughter laugh as Preston wiped paint off her nose. "I'm thinking about champagne glasses and broken things becoming beautiful again. I'm thinking about how grateful I am that you heard me that night, how grateful I am for everything that came after." Preston stood, crossing to her and pulling her close. Emma protested the interruption to her art lesson, but then went back to painting with renewed focus. In Preston's arms, Maya felt the same sense of safety and belonging that had been there from the beginning, only deeper now, richer with time and history and choosing each other every single day. "I'm the grateful one," Preston murmured against her hair. "You took a chance on me when you had every reason not to trust anyone. You let me love you. That's the greatest gift I've ever received." Maya pulled back just enough to look into his eyes, those dark eyes she had painted 100 times and would paint 100 more. "We saved each other." "Yeah," Preston agreed, kissing her softly. We did. And in the loft full of art and laughter and the family they had built together, Maya Warren Vaughn knew she was finally, completely, irrevocably home. The girl who had whispered she was leaving in a kitchen full of broken glass had become a woman who knew her own worth, who created beauty from pain, who loved fiercely and was loved the same way in return. She had survived the worst and found the best, and every single day she chose this life, this love, this man who had stepped in to save her and never let go, building something extraordinary together that would last all their days.